Welcome to Pagan Coffee Talk. If you enjoy our content, please consider donating and following our socials. Now, here are your hosts, Lady Alba and Lord Knight.
Hi.
Hi, Lord Oswin.
Hi, how are you, Lady Alba?
This is weird.
It is weird, isn't it?
So, just so everybody's aware, North Carolina is currently underwater. It's pretty bad. It's pretty freaking bad. We are seeing Katrina level destruction, just in the mountain towns, and
Yep.
it's not good, guys. We don't know what we don't know. Like, nobody knows right now. What we do know is that there are many mountain towns that are probably all of our big tourist attraction places that are completely cut off. Roadways are washed out, wiped out. Towns have been washed away. This is going to get a lot worse before it gets better. The water, it's got to go somewhere, and it's seeking its way to the ocean right now, and it is causing a wake of destruction after this hurricane.
Yep.
So currently, Lord Knight has no internet. Power has been super spotty, and we're limping along. Fortunately, all of us are, safe, but please keep the rest of the state in your prayers, because like I said, it's going to get a whole lot worse, I think, before it gets better for people.
Yep. Tennessee got hit hard too.
Yeah, it did. I don't know.
There's not a whole lot coming out about them, but
yeah,
I know they got hit hard.
And I'm sure it's got to be the town, like where Dollywood is, because that's very close to the North Carolina border.
Yeah, Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge.
Thank you.
Yeah, they all got hit pretty hard.
Yeah, and these are all like, literally, it's like the river. I mean, I don't know what it is. Like, why? Like, humans, I mean, we got to learn at some point. Like, we like see a body of water and go, excellent, let's build right there. Let's put things right at its edge. One of these days, we will learn that she is not to be trifled with, and stop doing that, because
Maybe.
Yeah, because literally every single one of these towns, Blowing Rock, Gatlinburg, Asheville, Chimney Rock, Lake Lure, Boone, they're all built next to either these giant lakes or these raging rivers. And yes, they're beautiful, but like Chimney Rock, the town of Chimney Rock, you could walk outside of, and I've done it many times, you could walk outside of these businesses and just go, like, we're talking within 10 feet and be in a river.
Yep.
And so, yeah, so we're going to be, a little limpy for a bit as we get this figured out. But Lord Oswin and I are here to kind of cover a few episodes and talk all things pagan, as we always do.
Right.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about discussing how to reconcile a new faith, pagan faith, with the tradition you were raised in, family faith, and also incorporation. Because I think a lot of people, when it comes to religion, and I think, parts of Christianity have something to do with this, they see it as very all or nothing. Right? It's
right.
Like,
it really is.
You believe in this or you believe in this, and there's zero in between, and that's kind of bullshit. So,
well, I'm seeing. It's interesting that you bring this up, because I'm actually seeing in a lot of the forums there seems to be. It's not a lot of people, but it seems to be cropping up a little more and more, where people are saying, "Well, I'm a Christian, but I practice witchcraft."
Yeah, I think the first thing to understand is that has been going on a long time.
Well, sure it has. Just not many people admit to it.
No, and I do think we're seeing more and more of that. I think in the old days, it was also viewed more as like a superstitious thing. Like, it wasn't, it was separate from, right? Like, I had my faith, but then I also had some mysticism or, some folk magic or something, right, kind of mixed in there. But it also makes you go, well, where did that come from? That may very well have predated the family religion, or it may have been remnants of a prior faith that existed, and it's just how it survived. But for a long time, like for our generation, yeah, it was very all or nothing. Like you were, yeah. And I mean, a lot of that does stem from other faiths, having a belief in, false idols and, right.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. It's almost like, it's a funny thing. It's almost like you're not supposed to divide your time when it comes to, right, those, your, what do you call it? Your faith and your belief system. But then at the same time, haven't we always kind of?
I think we have, yeah.
Yeah, like we're not, I think people get, I don't want to say bored, because I do kind of want to say bored. I feel like that's fun. We're all a little ADD,
Right.
And I
just
think
a little bit.
Yeah, we all acknowledge, one deity doesn't always cut it. So I do always get a giggle out of that when we look at the Christian faith and we talk about, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and then,
right.
conversely, Maiden, Mother, and Crone. It's like, well, yeah, at different points in our life, we relate to different aspects of deities. So why wouldn't that exist? But what about, can we talk a little bit about your journey and kind of, how you were raised, and then
Sure.
coming into paganism? And I mean, like, I've always found it fascinating, and I've always found your grace in reconciling some of these things to be kind of beautiful. So yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, so I was born and raised in a Southern Baptist church.
You don't say.
Yep. Good old South, it's pretty much the way it goes. But yeah, I mean, if my mom had had her way, I probably would have actually been born inside the church,
Oh, oh my God, how cute.
Yeah. And I know, it's so funny, isn't it?
But I remember your mom, and she was so freaking cute. So I kind
She was.
Like,
she was. I love Mama.
She was so adorable. Like,
yep. But yeah, so I grew up in the church, and I was very active. Mama was very active. Daddy was a deacon in the church, and so I had a lot of strong beliefs that I had grown up with, and come to cling to during the hard times of my life.
Sure.
And then I left the church for various reasons. One being I no longer could agree with some of the teachings. And, a lot of the people weren't willing to talk to me about it, and weren't willing to open up about these things. And so I was like, oh, okay, I got to look elsewhere. And so for many years, I just kind of wandered around on my own and didn't really do anything. Still kind of held to my Christian beliefs, but didn't really look at anything else.
Right.
And then I met Lord Knight, and at the time he wasn't even studying. He was who he is,
Right.
And he had been practicing at that time for probably 10 years.
Oh, wow.
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay.
Close to it anyway, I guess.
Okay.
And, when I first met him and I went over to his house for the first time, he had an altar sitting over on the side, and it had this big ass pentagram on it. And I'm like, okay, we need to talk, because I can't deal with no Satanists.
Oh my God, how funny.
And so I started learning from him at that point.
Right.
And that kind of started my journey, because then I started understanding a little bit more about what he was doing, about what it stood for. He would take me to the park and, kind of, I don't know, just explain things about nature and deity and things like that. And it felt right. But I couldn't completely let go of my Christian roots. It didn't feel right to me to let go of that.
Okay.
So I had to find a way to reconcile with that and incorporate it into what I was learning.
Right.
It took some time and a lot of trial and error. But I guess the biggest thing was coming to terms with that deity is just deity. And you can call it whatever you want.
Yeah.
It's still the same thing, right? It still comes from the same source. And that was the biggest thing for me, because then I was like, okay, I don't have to let go of my Christian background.
Okay. And I remember for me, upon meeting you, that was wild.
Yeah.
Because for the longest time, we considered you, or I think not we, like neophytes, first degree students of Lord Knights, because we're now fast forwarding, right, many years.
Oh yeah.
But for a long time, like, we all kind of considered you a Christian witch, which was like mind blowing to me. I was like, what?
Well, it wasn't. It's not something you really heard about back in the day either. So
no, but at the same time, and I don't know why, right? I wasn't really putting the connections together at that point of going, well, sure, my grandmother was a devout Catholic who also believed in, a number of, again, folklore magic things. And you look at like the Haitians, and you look at aspects of voodoo, and where it's all intermingled with Christianity. And I'm like, oh, right? Yeah.
Appalachian folk magic. I mean, even Mama, who was staunch Southern Baptist, she veered off from the typical Southern Baptist beliefs because she believed in the gifts of the Spirit.
What does that mean? Explain that.
Okay, it's not something that's really talked about too much in the Southern Baptist Church. But the gifts of the Spirit are like things like speaking in tongues, healing, dreams. I'm gonna say it, and it's not really the word I'm looking for, but it's more like being a prophet to an extent.
Okay, but I get what you're saying, because I mean, prophets come in a lot of different forms. I mean,
right?
Yeah. So I
mean, like Mama. It's a perfect example. Mama was a dreamer, what I call a dreamer. So before I was even conceived, she had, and I'm sure you've heard this story 1,000 times. She had this dream, right? I used to have a brother. He was 2 years older than me. So before I was even conceived, she had a dream that she was going to have a second son who would outlive the first.
Oh, wow.
And when I was 3 years old, he passed away.
Wow.
So that's the kinds of things that Mama would see in her dreams. Okay.
But for her, that gift, that insight, whatever you want to call it, it came from
God.
Right. And and for her, that was very much Christian. It was just,
yes,
it was Jesus or his daddy.
Right. She didn't, right. It was not seen as any type of witchcraft or anything like that. I mean, they used to have sessions at the house. Mama and her friends would come over, and it would be a group of ladies. Somebody was, sick or had an ailment of some kind. They would anoint her head with oil, and then they would lay hands on her and just pray for like 30 minutes.
Wow.
Right? And usually somebody in the group would get filled with the Spirit and start speaking in tongues.
And I hate to say it, but if that ain't craft, I don't know what is.
See?
I mean...
So these are the kinds of things that I grew up with, and kind of things that I started questioning. But nobody was willing to talk about it.
But you saw the connection, and it kind of opened the door.
Yes.
Okay. And yeah, I think, and then... Okay, so fast forward, again, we're going to skip a number of years. One of the things that we do at Life Temple is there is a particular movie that we have movie day with the neophytes, right? We
love movie day.
Popcorn, we have movie day. And one of the things that we have everybody watch is The Mists of Avalon, which is a mini series. Technically, I guess it wasn't even a movie. It was like a multi-part, thing. And really great cast, by the way. But it's older now. I guess it was probably shot in the 90s. I don't even know.
I'm not sure.
I think so. It was originally like a BBC piece. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
even, I don't even think it was domestic. But anyway, obviously it's based on the very famous book, The Mists of Avalon. And at the very, very end, right? Spoiler alerts. At the very, very end, there is this incredible scene connection where a woman who is basically supposed to be a Celtic seer and someone who, we can't call her a priestess, we can't call her like, it was just their way. It was just that time in history and how they viewed spirituality.
Right.
Anyway, she was heavily invested, obviously, in the Celtic, what we think of as the Celtic tradition. And at the very, very end, the movie talks about the conversion process and how, the Christians came to the Isles and how they effectively started influencing the culture and the people. And ultimately, she becomes a nun and she becomes a devotee to Mary.
Right.
And she literally says how, and I'm paraphrasing, but ultimately, right, my goddess just took on a new form.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, ding, 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 fuck, I'm an idiot. And it all sort of clicked. And I was like, but people have been doing this for eons. There's a reason why many of the branches of the Christian faith still venerate Mary tremendously, because they're still, in a way, tapping into people who need that female spiritual component inside of their Christian faith. And they are honoring what we think of as the mother-father, male-female dynamic, just
slightly differently, but yeah, it works.
But it's there. It's absolutely there. We can't say that it's not. And so that even got me on a bit of a kick. And I remember going down, and I still kind of do, whenever I see a book on it or something, I kind of pause and, give it my attention. The Greek Orthodox Church actually has this really fascinating insight and history into Mary. Mary is they view her, I think, a little differently than other aspects. And there's whole books that are written just about her, not from the standpoint of being Jesus's mother, even though, of course, that's part of it.
Right.
But all of this other lore and stories and things about her that maybe aren't explored in other aspects of Christianity. And so that is fascinating to me, because and figures like Eve and, other women from the Bible. And I'm like, she's here. She's here. That's, and so again, it was kind of an eye opener for me. It was just realizing, kind of like you said, I had to look elsewhere.
Right.
I had to look elsewhere. And it's ironic because I wonder, I really do, right? If my life had gone slightly differently, if there had been just a bend in the road, would I have gone down that path? It's very
being a devotee of Mary?
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
probably.
Absolutely.
Probably, yeah.
I can see where, had the conversations been more open, like you're talking about, had it been a little less taboo, that sure, I could have very easily seen myself going in a direction where she would be my goddess figure and I would still effectively be a Christian.
Well, and see, that kind of makes sense, especially for people who feel comfortable with the Christian religion and don't want to veer away from it. That would make sense. You know what I mean? And for years, Mary's always been referred to as the Queen of Heaven. So
yes, and there's good reason for that.
Hello.
And that's my point. But I think there's been a lot of jumbling, right? Let's be honest. And sometimes the secretive nature of religion doesn't do us any favors. It took me years before I was exposed to how, right, back in the day, nuns used to actually wear wedding dresses and have a wedding ring on their finger because they were married to Jesus. that blows my mind. That is about as pagan as it gets.
You think?
Yeah. And I mean, or at least that's how I equate it. But I think about those things and, you know, stories of the Holy Spirit and the burning bush. And I mean, right there's, and I go, man, we've just been circling around this dance.
We have.
For thousands and thousands of years. And I think now educated, open-minded pagans will go, it's all the same thing.
Right.
It's all the same thing. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. And I laugh because, you know, for a long time, as you know, I didn't step foot in a church. Ooh, I was so mad.
I know.
So mad, right?
When you came to us, you had such a grudge against the church.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there was so much of that, like, animosity and just, you know, and then I started doing it. Partially because, I mean, let's be honest, if you're a socialized adult, I don't think you're going to avoid it, right? Somebody's getting married, somebody's dying, you're going to have to get your ass in a church for something, whether you want to or not.
Exactly.
And I really started going, okay, it became a game where I would go find them.
Funny.
Find them. Find your deity. Find your, right? Find it. Because if it's here, if what you're being taught and what you're being exposed, it's here.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, this is terrible, right? Because it's like I was very much not focused on the task at hand, but I went to a funeral of a friend. It wasn't a friend it was a friend's family member had passed away, and I went to the service in support. And even for her, it was kind of a distant relative, so it wasn't like, you know, the saddest of affairs, but still, I was in a Lutheran church, and I was like, basically, while everyone else was paying attention to what was happening, I was enamored with the building. And between the windows, the artwork, the banners on the altar, I was like, oh shit.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's all here. It's all here. And that I remember, you know, of course they had, you know, communion, and I literally remember looking at this giant, you know, bannered, embroidered, you know, I don't know what you call it, but banner of the grapes and the chalice, and I'm like, come on. It's been here the whole time.
Yeah. I mean, people don't realize how integrated it is and how similar the religions really are.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I have, you know, a close friend who we have taken to calling him, just out of, you know, shits and giggles, the Lutherist, meaning a Lutheran Buddhist.
Nice.
Because he has sort of combined those two for himself. And I go, but yet, right? So yet, so here we are, right? We're talking about this, but yet there's still so much of that anger. There's still so many people, especially younger people, who have not gotten to this place yet. And they're just like I was back then, right? They're just pissed. And we're constantly having to remind them, you're angry with the ideals of the people, not the faith itself. If you look past the people, it was there all along. It really was.
I was going to say, you really have to separate the people from the religion. And
absolutely,
because that's something that I had to do. Yeah. My beef was not with Christianity. My beef was with the people.
Yep.
And I learned that early on, and that enabled me to kind of still hang on to my Christian roots.
Right.
Until I was ready to let go.
Oh, yeah. And in many ways, it's the people and the groups of people that will take an ideal and twist it, right?
Yes.
Or maybe twist is the wrong word. They will use it for their agenda and their agenda only, right? Like we always hear, you know, the blood is thicker than water, right? And we know if you really look at, that's not the phrase.
No, it's not.
No. which again, that one in particular, always, because I go, the blood of the covenant.
Mm-hmm.
Really, folks?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Thicker than the water of the womb. What?
Yep.
A single most pagan phrase possibly in all the Bible. I'm probably wrong. There are probably many others, but still.
Probably.
But it's incredible. And now, okay. Now you just said something I'm going to call you out on, though.
Okay.
You said, until I was ready to let go. But did you?
I think in a way, yes, I did. I've come to the point, and it took many, many years. I've come to the point where I'm not really comfortable calling any particular deity.
Interesting. Okay.
It's like I see it all as the same thing. So it's like I can't separate it anymore.
Right. Okay.
That makes sense. There are some that I feel have called to me and I have worked with, but for the most part, I don't separate it.
Okay.
When we call the god and goddess in ritual, if I'm the one doing that, I don't see a separation.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like I'm calling the yin and the yang, so to speak.
Yeah, you probably more so than a lot of people in our group represent someone who really is the the monotheistic, of paganism, because you're just seeing it as one all around.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is funny because, we say that, we go, look, we're technically monotheistic, but a lot of people don't believe that. Of course,
no.
They go, no, you're poly. You have 8,000 deities, but boil it down, right? Keep adding, and it's all the same thing,
right?
But that's really interesting. But yeah, I see what you're saying, because I know, having worked with Lord Knight as long as I have, I mean, we all know that in his mind, right, it's the Dagda. He's got right. He has very specific deities in his head most of the time.
He does,
So that's interesting. And I know,
and there's nothing wrong with that. And I it works for so many people.
Oh
yeah. And and I think that's the beautiful part of this, is that you can customize it to relate to whatever you need to relate to. You can. I do try to warn, though, that I think pagans are in danger of sometimes following the same, I don't want to say mistakes, but narrow-mindedness. In that, I saw something not that long ago about someone who's getting ready to do an entire series on Hecate. Okay, yeah.
Okay. I'm like, that's fantastic. All right, you're gonna do a course, and you're gonna, but then you go, at least from my standpoint, there's a reason why we have so many different aspects and so many different forms of God and goddess. If we are only ever focused exclusively on one, what are we missing? Right. Yeah. What are you denying yourself the ability to connect with, or to find out about yourself? Because you can become so consumed in one aspect that you just forget about everything else. And I mean, that's not well-rounded. It's not, but it is easy to fall into. Yeah. And I think that's got to do with the comfort zone. You find something that's comfortable and you stick with it. Right. But part of the core of paganism, in my belief, is stepping out of that comfort zone and learning something new. Yeah. It's not no matter how hard it might be. Yeah. Yeah. And when you start, and you're absolutely right, when you start looking at all the different gods and goddesses, they all have different aspects. They all have different virtues, if you will. What are you denying yourself? Yeah. Just by focusing on the ones. Yeah. Yeah, there's good reasons why many of the ancient cultures, and even some of the modern ones, if we look at Hinduism, not that it's modern, but you know what I mean. You're right. Still regularly practiced. I almost see it as you're hiding behind, right? You're latching on to an aspect of something in your own personality, something that's familiar.
Mm-hmm.
And because, yes, it's in your comfort zone, you're just going, this is it, I'm good. But that may not always hold true. And then we see people with, crisis of faith, and we see, other problems arise. Yet you have to kind of go beyond it at some point and open yourself up to what else you have to gain internally from exposure to
right.
other, yeah.
Like Lord Knight, he almost exclusively uses the dog.
Tyr, Bridget.
Yeah, but he also understands.
Yes.
And he knows that if he needs something else, he can call on that.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's like we went to go do a hand fasting for a couple in Charlotte. Well, not really a hand fasting, but they called it a hand fast.
Okay, fair.
And they wanted to use brace yourself, Effie. They wanted to use Hecate. And he's like,
for a wedding?
Yeah. He's like, why? Why do you want to use her? And after talking to, I know. And after talking to them, he was like, okay, if this is what you want, this is what we will do.
Right.
And yeah. So,
Ooh.
Yeah, that was an experience in and of itself.
I hope he still has his penis. That's all I can really say to that.
It's as far as I know, he does.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so I mean, it's understanding that there are other aspects that you can call on.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think, to kind of wrap this up, I think getting to this place is curiosity. It is open-mindedness. It is the willingness to be a student, to just look, to just, see what else is out there, to not be judgmental about it. But also, it is letting go of guilt and preconceived notions. And those are the hard ones.
Woo, you just hit it on the nail.
Yeah.
Yep.
Those are the hard ones, without a doubt. Like the exploration part, that's easy. It's there. It's out there. It's very easy to explore. But the guilt and the preconceptions, man, those are rough. But many, many people have walked this path. Many.
Right.
So.
And many more will.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I don't know about you, but I think I need more coffee.
Nah, I certainly do.
Okay.
Thanks for listening. Join us next week for another episode. Pagan Coffee Talk is brought to you by Life Temple and Seminary. Please visit us at lifetempleseminary.org for more information, as well as links to our social media: Facebook, Discord, Twitter, YouTube, and Reddit.
We travel down this trodden path, a maze of stone and mire. Just hold my hand as we pass by a sea of blazing pyres. And so it is the end of our days, so walk with me till morning breaks. And so it is the end of our days, so walk with me till morning